Hey, what's up guys? Today the super rares were shown for the theme set Tournament of Power. So today we're going to take a quick look at those and just give you my initial impressions on the card. I did a quick glance of them, but like haven't really fully read over all of them. So yeah, this is kind of like off the cuff, trying to figure out like what get general impressions on where I think the cards are going to be, and just the how strong they may be, whether or not they'll see play. At first glance, it feels like all the super rares are really powerful. Um, and that's kind of, I don't know how to feel about that because I feel like the lower end of the spectrum for the set, the commons and the uncommons, aren't really that good. It just kind of feels like any playables that are in the set are the higher rarities, which makes it a little bit annoying because it kind of feels like a cash grab. People who can't really afford boxes of this, especially since we're cranking out sets so fast now. It's just kind of a little concerning. That's all. The good cards are basically going to end up being the money cards in this set. And if one or two of these ends up taking off and being really powerful, then you have another veggie situation in your hand where it's going to be just very inaccessible for a lot of people to get certain archetypes to play certain archetypes. So with that said, let's just dive in here. So the first card is Universe 7, Saiyan Prince Vegeta, 20k single strike. Auto, when you play this card in your hand, if your leader is red, choose up to one of your other Saiyan battle cards in which are Universe 7 or Universe 6 and switch it to active mode, which is very strong because you get to obviously attack twice with that card. Both that card and this card gave him plus 10k and triple strike. So this is a great finisher for an aggro deck, especially for Khalifa leader. I believe Khalifa is obviously she's a red leader, so you can play. So red green Universe 6 is already a projected archetype that's pretty good for next set, just because the Dash Pack Kaba can grab the 4-drop Khalifa, who can get the 3-drop Kaba, and that's just a really powerful board presence that hits pretty hard. So like the turn after you do something crazy with like the Khalifa, you can kind of attack with whatever's still in play, untap it, give it triple strike in 10k, and then this guy comes down, he's a 30k triple strike already. So he's a really good finisher. My only issue with him is that he occupies the same spot as Vados. However, there's definitely enough room for you to play maybe 2, possibly 3 of him in the deck. And I'm really a big fan of the fact that he's a 5-drop with 2 red. We keep seeing a lot of 4 and 5 drops in red that are triple red, which kind of force you to play basically like a 70% red deck in order for them to have any sort of consistency. So I'm a big fan of this because the earlier parts of the deck and the middle parts of the deck are probably all going to end up being green. So pretty happy with the double red. I definitely think this card will have a home. It definitely just seems like a really great finisher for an aggro deck. So not much to say. This is actually, I think, just a really well designed SR in general. Foreseeing Hit. I remember reading this, I thinking this was like the coolest card. So he's 4 cost, 20k double strike, 0 for 5k, which is always nice. I believe Vegeta is 1 for 10, yeah. So 0 for 5 is always really, really good because he's just always useful in your hand. When you play this card from your hand, your opponent reveals their hand. Choose up to 2 battle cards with 35k or less power from their hand and send them to the warp. At the end of your opponent's next turn, return all cards sent to the warp with this skill to their hand. So this card is another one of those cards like Warriors of Universe 7. The red extra card that gives Saiyan's Barrier. This is a card that demonstrates format mastery. When you know the breakpoints for certain decks, like when you know that turn 5 Soul Striker is going to pop off, you can play this the turn before and just kind of hit their best thing. Or like you're playing against Zamasu and he's going to Goku Black you on turn, when he goes into 6 energy, you can play the hit and kind of pick off the Goku Black and just kind of nullify their entire play. Not to mention, you get to see their whole hand, which is just amazing information. This card has really high skill cap, and honestly, I can see this card seeing play in a lot of decks. A lot of people will splash red for this. Red already has some very good playables like Kaba and Topo, so I can foresee this hit. Get it, foreseeing hit. Seeing a lot of play in the future for sure. He is a wonderfully designed SR. My only complaint is this is kind of like the gimmick that was given to yellow cards in the previously. It's kind of weird to see it color shifted to red. I've spoken about a color pie before on this channel, and I really wish they would kind of stick to it, because right now it's all over the place, and when we get to one of the SRs that was shown later on down the line, that card also feels color shifted. So yeah, this felt like this should have been a yellow SR. I know it's hit, and it's pretty flavorful with hit, but it really should have been a yellow card. And that's not to say like, hey, you know, yellow is already really powerful. Yes, I get it. Yellow is arguably the best color in the game right now, but like, you still want to stick to the plan when it comes to colors. Colors should have predefined strengths and weaknesses. Yeah, it's just very weird to see the aggro color is the one that gets the hand control, like the hand peak effect. So next up is Relentless Super Saiyan Kale. She is 5 cost triple red, which makes it a little bit harder to play her. 1 cost 10k, evolves for triple red and 1 off of any Kale. It doesn't have to be a Universe 7 Kale, so you can evolve this off of the SR that's already seeing play. So you know, green, yellow, red already can play Kale off of Shigash and then get, you know, tons of value. Double strike, 25k, which is about where you want to be for a 5-drop. When a card evolves into this card, choose all battle cards with 25k less, 25k or less power, other than this card and your Caulifla and KO. So it is a board wipe. Doesn't get around barrier. It's fine. Like, I really want more board wipe style effects in the game, so I'm very happy that this card is in it. It just feels very fair. And compared to some of the other super rares I've seen in the set, it's not really that insane. So like, this card really should have been a rare. I just don't know why this card was an SR. It feels like this card was an SR just because it was a Kale. That's basically about it. Yeah, there's not much else to say. More board wipes, please, Bandai. Especially ones that get around barrier. I'm still looking for Supreme Verdict, which is just an extra card that wipes the board. Both players' boards can't be negated or interacted with in any way. Cause I don't care if it's like a 5 or 6 cost. Like, it's just one of those cards that just needs to happen. There needs to be something that completely stuffs go wide strategies, because right now there really isn't anything that stops the go wide strategy. It definitely needs to be contained. Or, you know what, better yet, give a Sign to the Future from Forcewell. That would be awesome. I would take that as well. That's a 2 cost extra card that you can only play when your opponent has like 3 or more guys than you. You just get to RFG straight up the difference. So it kind of equalizes the board. If your opponent gets too many guys on board ahead of you, they get punished really hard. I would really like to see a card like that in this game as well. So yeah, Kale, probably the weakest of the 3 so far. Probably won't see a ton of play. Good sideboard card. If the format is like very go wide though, and as it doesn't really have that many barrier units, this card could see some play for sure. But right now, just feels very okay. Like I say, it has a lot of potential. Just it's not really broken. It's just a very fair card. Already have to have something in play, and doesn't get around basically the most broken mechanic in the game right now, which is on some of the better creatures. Okay, here's the card that's like a nightmare for everybody. And by the way, this is like the sickest art in the world. Beerus Universe 7 Divine Vanquisher. What a sick name too. This card is just incredibly sick looking. 5 cost, 2 blue. Very happy about that. Don't like seeing triple costs on 5 drops. There should be a little bit more flexibility, I feel like, in this game when it comes to casting cards. 1 cost 10k for the combo, 25k double strike. Really good. Obviously, he's a God and Universe 7, which are pretty much the 2 most relevant traits. God, like, it's just God Android and like Universe 7, it feels like, are just like the traits that actually matter in this game. And I guess you could say Saiyan too, just because of Shigesh. But yeah, so just good traits in general. Auto, when this card attacks a leader card, your opponent chooses any number of cards from their hand, battle area, or energy area for which the total cost adds up to 6 or more and places them in the drop area. Okay, so as far as I understand it, if you attack with this Beerus and there is 6 costs worth of cards in play, they're losing something. So if, for example, they have 5 energy and they're all 1 cost cards, and they have any battle card, you know, in play, they would have to pitch something. So you're going to get some value, because I know a lot of people are really upset that, like, if your opponent has, say, 5 energy, they all cost 1, no battle cards in play, they don't have to discard anything, because they could say, hey, all the cards in my hand are 0 costs. So I can't actually discard 6. So the effect fizzles because you have to have at least 6 for the effect to go off. Otherwise, if it was up to 6, all it would take is you to just wipe your opponent's hand out with like a green based strategy, then drop this guy, and then you just wipe all of their energy because they don't have anything else they can do. So that's kind of like the balancing mechanic, and that's why it's so awkward. I feel like the language should be cleaned up a little bit. That said, this card is really good. I'm really upset this card isn't available for Hartford. I would love to play this card as a 4-of in my deck. I think it's, really good for certain strategies. So, blue leaders really need a way to combat these like stally hand control decks, and this is kind of sticking it right back to them. So I'm happy this card's in blue, but this should have been a green card. But I think if it wasn't green right now, it'd probably be pretty pushed. This is probably my favorite super that was shown in the set. Just the name, the art on it, the effect, it's all just really good. It's probably going to see some play for sure. I don't think it's as insane as other people think it is. I think it's just a very good card. You can get it out as early as turn 4 in most blue decks, which is, about right where you want him to show up. Because right now, the 4-drop area is basically where they're lacking. Like blue has a pretty solid first 2 turns, and then their 3rd and 4th turns are pretty mediocre to bad, and then turns 5 and 6 for them are pretty strong, at least for most blue-based decks. That's kind of an issue I wanted them to address. So Beerus can kind of slide in there on that the upper end of that and actually address some of the issues. He kind of can help stabilize the game, and unchecked for quite a long time. He, if you play like a Protect the Beerus comp, like you play like blue-yellow with Cold Bloodlust, or like, just a techie Zarbon or something, he can kind of run over the game. He's just incremental advantage over time, and he's going to be a card that has to be answered. So I'm really happy with this card's design. Probably not the best SR in the set, but it's definitely up there. I would probably say it's in the top 3 or 4 from what I've seen. Trios de Danger Bergamo card also has pretty sick artwork. 4-cost triple blue, so this guy is basically relegated to mono blue, which mono blue right now is really bad, and Tournament of Power I don't really feel like changed that too much, so that's already a pretty big knock against him, but I think he might be able to get better in the future. So 1 cost 10k also hurts him for a 4-drop. Most 4-drops now are 0 cost plus 5k after Kale kind of creeped that and made that kind of the norm, or you just didn't really see play. Permanent. If this card is in rest mode, your opponent's battle cards can only attack this card. Really good effect. Defensively, very good effect. Permanent, when Lavender and Basil are in play in your area, your battle area, all your Trio de Dangers in your battle area gain barrier. So there's what Matt was afraid of, was that the Trios de Danger would have barrier, because giving them barrier would be obnoxious. Right now you could play mono blue SS3, I believe, and just turn 2 Lavender, or turn 1 Lavender, turn 2 Basil, turn 3 this guy, and they all have barrier at that point, and you don't have to swing anymore. So you don't have to swing. It's a redirect to those guys if you want. And then obviously turn 4, you just lock your opponent out of the game at like 3 or 4 energy. So he's kind of the piece that the deck was missing. I don't know how strong that deck will be. A stasis deck in general in games is very powerful, like a lock style deck. Actually, I guess you could say it's like stacks. Like a stack style deck is usually oppressive, and is usually, if it's good or consistent, is usually the best thing in whatever game it is. And so I don't really know. Bergamo is just going to be this card that's either going to be broken or it's just going to be a total flop. So this is a card that I think that should be on people's radars, and this is a card that you really, really should test, and do not dismiss this card like at all. This card should be something in the first 2 or 3 weeks you should be brewing with quite a bit and figuring out how good it is. Because if you can consistently get a stasis style deck, like a lockdown deck, functioning, then it is very difficult for other decks in the format to even execute their game plan. And if you execute your game plan and your opponent's deck doesn't, like, that's just basic. You're just going to win the game. So I really just think that this card is very strong. Also, it's going to have barrier if you have the other 2 guys, if you curve the other 2 guys out anyway. his last part of his effect. When this card is attacked, he gets plus 5k power for the duration of turn. That's not once per turn, so they have to attack this card. It's going to be a 25k the first time they attack it. If they fail to combo, the next time they attack it, it's going to be a 30k, then a 35, then a 40, and so on and so forth. So he gets progressively more difficult to get him off the board. But yeah, I just think this card is actually quite well designed. I don't like giving, barrier in general. I just don't. I think barrier was a mistake, but I guess they've realized they printed too much removal in this game, and the only way to get themes working and not have them just get blown up, they felt they needed to go to barrier rather than an alternative like, if your opponent's battle card targets this card with a skill, they have to discard 2 cards or something. Which is like, yeah, you could get rid of it if you want to, but it decentivizes you from doing so, like by giving your opponent a huge disadvantage. So like you have to get rid of it in other ways, like say an extra card effect, like they would give cards like Assassination Plot a use, or Death Razor a use, because they could get around these kinds of creatures without hitting the a hard penalty. So yeah, I think that's a design philosophy, a design area they should have went. That route just feels better to me than just, hey, just give guys protection from everything. So yeah, so again, Bergamo, you should be playing with this card when the set comes out, because he's probably a lot stronger than most of you guys are giving him credit. Definitely something I'm going to be brewing with very early on. Son Goku, Hope of Universe 7, 8 costs, triple green. I guess that's about fair. 35k, 1 cost 10k for the combos. EX Evolve. I actually want to look at the picture here, because if it's one of these EX Evolves, they always forget something. Costs 1 colorless. Place 2 Universe 7 cards from your hand into the drop area. Evolves off of a Universe 7 Son Goku with an energy cost of 5 or more. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that means he only evolves off of the yellow Super Saiyan Blue Spirit Bomb Goku. I think that's the only one in the set that costs 5. And that card's awesome. So that card already sees a ton of play. It's just a better version of Super Saiyan Gotenks, which is a card that's fading from popularity, but I think having the ability to pump yourself by plus 10k and self-awaken on that card, it makes it a lot better now. So this Goku definitely has a viable target, so I'll give him that. Triple attack. So not triple strike, triple attack. He attacks 3 times per turn and has critical with 35k and crit. I'm pretty sure you're going to connect. It's going to hit 3 times. When this card attacks, if your leader card is green, choose up to 1 card from your opponent's hand or up to 1 of their battle cards and place it in the drop area. That effect is brutal, but your opponent will always choose the most winning thing. So assuming that this card doesn't just immediately get Crusher Balled, or immediately Mifuba'd, or immediately Raging Gohan'd, yeah, this card is going to most likely rip 3 life from your opponent. It's obviously not going to be as consistent of a finisher as the previous Ultra Instinct, because that one is like a one and done deal. Like if they negate your negate, you're just taking 3 straight out. This one, it's not so guaranteed that you're going to take the 3 damage. However, you do get a choice. You do get a guy off your opponent's board, and if they don't have anything that they're willing to sack, they could just get rid of cards in their hand. The biggest hang up is you have to be playing a green leader, and Cell is like the best choice, I guess, for a green leader for this style of deck. Either Cell or the Goku that's in the set, which I feel like I misevaluated him quite a bit. I know in a previous video I said I thought he was pretty much terrible, but then Master Roshi was previewed and everything kind of went out the window, and he instantly became 10,000 times better. So it's definitely going to be one of those 2 leaders if you're looking to play this guy. It's going to end up being Cell or Universe 7 Ultra Instinct Goku leader. So yeah, this guy, he has potential. Really going to require testing. He is basically going to come out on turn 6, most likely. He is playing. The thing is, though, like, you're playing. Man, it's just there's so many restrictions on the card, because you just kind of like it just, you have to play the yellow Goku though, so you have to go yellow green, or you have to play the Goku that makes him basically colorless. All your Goku's colorless. In which case, then like the deck's just really slow. So I just don't see how you get this guy out. he definitely just is not going to be the force that the old Ultra Instinct is. Really cool card, but I think he's probably going to end up being the worst SR in the set just because he's really unwieldy. I mean, it is possible. Don't get me wrong. Like, once he actually gets into play, he's pretty much a monster if he's not answered like immediately. But he doesn't instantly just wipe your opponent's board, like, set your opponent back like the other Ultra Instinct does, and he doesn't just insta win you the game either. So, and he's also much harder to cast than that card already was. So I don't know. Cool card, probably just not gonna get there though. Sorry. Maiden Squadron Leader Rebrian. This is, after seeing most of the stuff, this is probably, in my opinion, still the best SR in the entire set. It just does too much too quickly. So yeah, 5 cost, 2 green, 25k, only a single strike, but that's actually beneficial for this card when we get into the effect. 1 cost, 10k for the combo. Evolves off of Brienne de Chateau, which is a 2-drop barrier, so it's basically a guaranteed evolve, like you're gonna get it. For 3, has barrier itself, which is the most broken mechanic in the game. When a card evolves in this card, choose it to one of your opponent's battle cards and KO. That alone makes the card good. A 25k barrier that you can evolve off of a card that searches it that already has barrier is really, really strong. Like, playing 3 mana to kill anything and basically turn a 10k barrier into 25k barrier is already good. That is already good enough to be played even in the current format. And then it just has, when this card attacks, if you have Cocoon Send Rosie in your battle area, which is incredibly easy to do thanks to Maiden Transformation and to Save a Hopeful Future. It's incredibly easy to put this card into play, to get all 3 pieces into play. You just get to choose up to 2 of your opponent's cards at random and place them in the drop area. So Rebrand in an SS3 leader can come out on turn 3, or turn 2, and then the Maidens come out on turn 3, and then from there on out, if your opponent cannot kill the Rebrian, which means they actually have to physically attack Rebrian and out combo you, then they're just going to lose the game. So if you drop this on, you get all 3 of them on turn 3, and you swing at your opponent. So if you went first, they would most likely have probably, let's say, 6 or 7 cards. You knock them down to 4 to 5 cards. So they now have 4 to 5 cards with whatever they have in their hand to kill this. If it's a 15k, they're going to commit 1 to 2 cards to get rid of it. So that's going to put them in a 2 to 3 card window now to kill the Rebrian. And if you combo a 5 or a 10k and block their attack, they only have 2 or 3 cards in their hand. And then when you swing at them next turn, they're going to go to 1 to 2 cards in their hand. Like, that's really brutal. At that point, the game becomes incredibly hard to win. And all it really takes for you at that point, when you untap, if you just happen to have another to Save a Hopeful Future or a Maiden Transformation in your hand, you could just pick up another Rebrian and just strip their hand. And that's it. Like, the game's just over at that point. It's like turn 4, game's basically over. Your opponent's never going to get more than 2 cards in their hand for the rest of the game. So, yeah, Rebrian's my pick for the best super in the set, just because the archetype just feels, once it goes live, once it happens and pops off, it's just unstoppable. Frieza, Emperor of Universe 7. 7 cost, 2 yellow. So this card's super splashable. Very happy about that. He is 30k triple strike, 1 cost 10k combo. EX evolve 1, place 1 Universe 7 card from your hand to Universe 7. Evolves off of a Universe 7 Frieza. So it only really evolves off the dual attack yellow one that gets around barriers. That card's already pretty good. So this card has a decent shot of seeing play off of the evolve. This card's also a Frieza, which means that you can put him in play with the set 2 7-drop Cooler. So that, again, he's got more targets that way. So he also has, if your leader is yellow, which yellow's got the best leader, so it's not even really a drawback. Your opponent's counter skills and non-keyword auto/activate skills cannot be activated unless they place 1 card from their life in the drop area. So correct me if I'm wrong, but that means if my leader is yellow and this guy is in play, if your opponent plays any card that has counter on it, or uses the auto of any or activated ability of any card, they have to pay a life or it gets negated. So this card turns off quite a bit. It turns off most of the extra cards in your opponent's hand. They have to pay a life to use every single extra card in their hand because they're either all counters or they're all activate main. So yeah, you won't be able to use those cards. So it basically makes extra cards blank. So that's already really powerful. And I can see this card just be a card that comes out late game. Even in like yellow mirrors, this kind of card can just kind of insta win you the game. Just because it puts you. It's a taxing effect. It's a stack style effect. Like you lock your opponent out of options unless they really want to like put themselves close to losing the game. So Freeze is really strong. Would not surprise me if this card, like Rebrienne, is a heavily played card. Very strong. I don't see why people didn't think that this card was one of the best supers in the set. It just kind of feels like it's largely ignored, unless I'm misinterpreting the card's effect. So you can let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But this card to me just seems like, hey, if you want to play your Kale and actually resolve the auto ability, like you got to pay 1. You want to remove this Frieza, you got to pay 1. And when you're at like 1 or 2 life, the option just becomes almost impossible. And when this card does come out, you're most likely at 4 or less life anyway. So, and he's a triple striker for 30k. So just activating one ability puts you in lethal from this card's attack. Really strong card, for sure. Doesn't even really you don't even really have to use the EX evolve. You can just honestly play 1 or 2 of these guys in the deck with a really defense heavy deck, and he just kind of comes down and he'll lock up the game for you at that point. And then finally we have Absolute Justice Jiren. 10 cost, 5 yellow specific. He is a 35k, 1 cost plus 10k. I actually thought it was going to be a 40k because if I recall correctly, the hit can only look at cards that are take cards that are 35k or less. So I was kind of like wondering if there was a flavor reason. It was because this Jiren was 40k, but he's only 35k. That was kind of, I guess, it was a reference. I thought it was going to be a reference to the fact that hit can't touch Jiren because he just gets absolutely rolled. So yeah, quadruple strike. So if this guy hits you, you're dead. It's game over if this man hits you. You're done. That's it. He just lays you out. He hits like an absolute truck. Permanent reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand for each Universe 11 in your battle area, but you still have to pay the specified cost. So if you have like a ton of Universe 11 guys in play, he's going to end up costing 5. I actually think that's really easy to do unless your opponent board wipes you with Kale, which is, Kale is just kind of the bane of a lot of decks right now, just because it's a board sweep that's free for some leaders. Hate you, Shigesh. Really do. So I just think the Universe 11 deck is pretty slept on. And with the Jiren leader that lets you untap too. Yeah, it's really difficult for your opponent to kill things. Like with Coquette Zone, the 1 cost yellow extra card, that card can tap things. It kind of negates 2 attacks. Like it'll negate the first attack and then negate the battle card already in play. So that's a really good defensive card. Jiren keeps your guys untapped. If they actually had Cold Bloodlust, like it's very easy to see this card coming out on turn 5. So I don't know, I feel like they were overreacting when they said this card is too hard to cast. I don't really agree with you, especially since on turn 4 you can play Topo and he just gets 3 guys immediately. And if you go like Topo and get 2 Jirens off of Topo, like you're pretty much board clearing your opponent anyway. So yeah, they're gonna have to spend their turn basically rebuilding a board. So Jiren just feels like he's gonna end up being a card that's not as hard or as difficult to play as you guys think he is. Then finally he has, when you play this card, choose all of your opponent's battle cards and energy in rest mode and place them in the drop area. So yeah, his effect is devastating. You play this card, you can set your opponent back like pretty much to the beginning of the game. It could be just game over. I'm a little annoyed that like the leader that is the best against this card is SS3, because as if SS3 needed more help being good, because he untaps 3, so he's gonna at least get to live and go into his turn 4 again. So yeah, the strategy should be for this Jiren is just to kind of bait your opponent with cards you already have in play, get them to tap as much energy and as many guys as possible before you drop him, obviously, and then you just kind of lay them out and hope that Jiren just finishes the job for you. And if he doesn't, he kind of your opponents probably are going to be really far behind. He feels like a different and much worse version of Fu Shrouded and Mystery. Like when you resolve this card, you should just basically win right there on the spot. And if you don't, your opponent's next turn is so crippled that you're just going to win the following turn anyway. I think he's a little bit harder to play than Fu, so he's probably not going to see as much play. This one, like I said, the card is obviously very strong. It's just like Bergamo, how consistent and how easy it is to get this guy out in a competitive environment. So it's another card I think that people should probably experiment with quite a lot. If you open a couple of boxes and pull like at least 3 of this guy, I encourage you to build Universe 11. Messing around with Universe 11 a little bit, it's actually not as bad as people think it is. Jiren as a leader is also not as bad as you guys think he is. Jiren's actually, I feel like one of the better leaders in the set, and you know, he's actually not that bad. Like he's strictly better than Set 3 Bardock leader, and Set 3 Bardock leader isn't even a bad deck. Like Bardock Veggies is very much a tier 2 to a tier 1.5 deck. Like that's a very good deck. So if Jiren's better than that, like he has a chance. Galactic Emperor is already seeing play, and is just barely outside of the realm of tier 1 right now. So do not be surprised if Jiren ends up actually being a pretty good leader. He has access to basically every broken card in the game except for Cold Bloodlust, and that's like the only reason I feel like people are just dismissing him. They're just like, oh, he's just worse than Galactic Emperor because he doesn't have Cold Bloodlust. Well, he draws a lot more cards than Galactic Emperor. So yeah, that's pretty much my piece. My first thoughts on the super rares in this set. Let me know what you guys think of the super rares in the set. Were you guys disappointed? Did you guys think that every card is broken? Anything format warping? What are you guys most excited to build? And speaking of builds, what do you guys want to see as far as Tournament of the Power decks coming down the pipeline? Obviously, I have a Maiden's deck built, but I'm thinking about trying my hand at a Universe 7 Goku list, and I'll probably throw that up here sometime next week maybe, just to give you guys some templates to try and build with when you crack your Tournament of Power packs next weekend. Alright guys, so that's going to be it for me. I'll see you guys in the next video.